Hello, how are you? I was actually really hoping that I would meet the person that was going to sit on that specific like orange chair, but nobody dared to go there, right? And I think maybe because you're all in the scheme already, like you're really going with a full vibe of like community, and you thought, I'm not going to be that person that just stand there and kind of act as a lonely wolf, if that makes sense. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you all, and everyone there as well watching us online. It's a shame you're not here because I've really put off, the show for you all. So anyway, don't start my chrono yet. I was just doing a free jamming here. People like putting me back my timing, 25 now. Anyway, cuckoo, hello. My name is Nelly Hayoun Stépanian, and I go by the she, they pronouns, and I speak with a very, very strong French accent. So I'm really sorry for all of you today, because this is going to be a really crash course with your French classes, because the more it goes, the more chaotic it gets, and of course, because, Sally told me, Nelly, you only have 20 minutes. I thought, okay, Sally, let's do it. Let's make it a challenge. I'm going to do 174 slide people in 20 minutes. You're going to be so awake after this. This is going to be like, woohoo! But anyway, we're going to speak about organized community today, and we're going to obviously talk about movements. And I think there is a big difference there. And I will talk about this a bit in the work and through the practice and the way that I kind of do my projects and so on. But I would say, to me, the big difference there is in terms of the time frame, So organized community, you really kind of like support the fact that this community is going to build a legacy and maintain itself and eventually build federation of care around themselves, while a movement is kind of like more of a one-off, right? You put an event together and then you drop it, and then maybe there is nothing else that happens. And for me, my kind of like my go-to is definitely organized community. And I'm gonna share a bit of a personal story, which I don't do usually, but I thought it was kind of relevant to the topic since we're talking about craft. So it's actually the first time I'm showing this picture. So be kind, this is my granddad, who is actually one of the Armenian leader of the Armenian diaspora in France. So I'm actually half Armenian, half Algerian, and I'm raised in France. And my granddad is here with my great-grandma, who actually survived the Armenian genocide and crossed the entire, Syrian desert to arrive in France. And I'm sharing this because actually I realized, putting this whole presentation together, that the reason why I make such choices in my work or in my practice is very much to do with, my grandparents actually, and what they did when they arrived in France. So my granddad arrived. My great-grandma, of course, didn't speak a word in French. Neither did my granddad. I mean, although he kind of like learned it quite quickly at school because he arrived much younger than her, obviously. And this is actually the few Armenians that survived the genocide from the village of my great-parents, the Hapetzi. And you can see them here, kind of doing the pose. And they actually got together and they started to make textile. And this is really important because what you find, and I think Yinka was talking about this as well, is like in a lot of migrant community, we usually kind of like collage, together around a specific craft. And for Armenian people, when they arrived in France, it was really the kind of the textile and the shoemaking. Armenian people are very good shoemaker. If you didn't know that, well, now you do. So I'm going to quickly take you through some. Are you still alive? You still okay? Am I okay to keep on going a tiny bit? So I wanted to share with you something that we've developed with, we did an all nationwide festival all around the UK, which was dedicated to supporting nightlife and youth counterculture. So 18 to 25 years old, all across the UK. We did this festival called Tour de Moon, which was there for us to actually ask questions about, how can we support radical imagination within youth group and also celebrate and support nightclubs and reinvest into the nightclubs. And so, for us, especially with the kind of the tagline of this festival that was meant to celebrate divisive narrative and, of course, Brexit, we actually flipped it completely around and actually celebrated completely the opposite, which is plurality, all of the different culture of the UK, what makes it so unique that, about 5% of the entire GDPR of the UK is actually built on nightlife, right, and nightlife workers. And for us to actually reinvest there. And so I'm not going to go into detail of all of it, but we kind of toured all around. This was our core statement, which is kind of a miracle that we even won it with it. This idea of redistribution of wealth, when we started it, we decided to actually design a sort of a strategy that will allow us to make decisions. So, if you're going to send us a proposal, so we made an open call everywhere, all around the UK, but not just the UK. So anyone, if you were from Brazil, if you were from everywhere, you could also win a grant to actually make a piece of work for that specific festival. And the idea is that we wanted it to be meaningful. So, you had to collaborate with someone from a complete different discipline from your usual kind of daytime. It had to be non-human centric. So how do you get animals involved? How do you get insects involved? So for example, we collaborated with the moon. We send signal in space and back. We did something called moon bounce, which is a real thing, like sending a signal in space and back. We collaborated with Morph. We did all of this crazy stuff, pretty much. Decentralized and organic as well. How do you support Federation of Care through your project? How do you support other communities as well? Collaborative and expected pluralistic. And that was kind of like, in a nutshell, the way that we kind of made selections about the walks. And then the other part of the situation, and I'm sure, I know some of you are designers, but there might be the marketing department out there. And there is some really simple thing that can be done, right? When you have a budget available to you, because that was our situation, which usually we don't get that situation where we give in a way. You do a location appraisal. Where is it that it's going to make a big difference? So, of course, in your case, I don't know what the next focus is going to be in 2026, but perhaps think about where are your audiences? How can you make a difference in this specific local community? How do you actually support, where, in our case, where has not been any COVID recovery plan? Where can we make a difference? And this is an horrible slide, but I wanted to share it with you as well, is because there is some very simple thing you can do where, say, you book a venue as Nike or, for your next event, make a checklist to see if actually the core value of the organized community you want to support are also inside this venue. I mean, it's really simple stuff, right? And maybe I'm speaking open doors, but I find that often we don't think in these terms. But it makes such a difference. If I turn up in an event and I say, hey, are your toilets gender neutral? Do you have accessible ramps? Yes or no? How do you support the local community around you? What have you done specifically? And I do this now with every single event I'm being booked to. And that means that people have to kind of like effectively go one step ahead. And if they don't know how to do it, then we pay to support like equity, diversity, inclusion, training. Whatever we do is going to bring as well a legacy that is going to support the community that we care about. And that's kind of also to tell you that this is the way that, in a nutshell, the festival was built, where everything we did is, of course, we had a part of it that we produced ourselves because we still had to run a festival and deliver a festival. But a massive part of it was totally wild. In a sense, we didn't know what was going to come back. And then our job was to actually make it fit within the festival, but not the other way around, because often what we do whenever you are having a marketing budget is you say, this is the content I want for my platform. But actually, you should think the other way around. This is the content this community is going to produce for you, and then it's your job to actually figure out what is the best platform that is going to fit their content. Does that make sense? So I'm going to probably stop here because otherwise we're going to run out of time. But I just wanted to say as well that there is no reason why a brand should always look the same. I mean, in our case, every single full moon will change the logo of the entire festival. So it was a total brain fuck. Like, you didn't know where To the Moon was going to arrive, where it was going to land. It was like designed like a drop, pretty much. Every drop, full moon, like boom, it arrived. The Christmas special, we did every single and this is kind of like some of the trucks and the convoys, and we kind of arrive at night, disappear at night. We were all UVs. I mean, it was just completely, and we had this hotline where you could talk to the moon, which we designed an entire AI with all of this use group all around the UK that told us what they want to talk about with an extraterrestrial, for example. So, you could engage in a conversation with the moon, and that was like launch on WeTransfer, and there was kind of like a bit, like people having like a sort of a one-to-one therapy session with the moon, which was interesting as well, in a nutshell. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. These are some of the sets of the festival. Every night, different nights. Every night, different actors. Every night, different script. Everything was just always rolling, different, permanent motion. Nothing was ever static. Moon Press was coming out of it as well. Zines were developed every night. Different graphic designer, different chief editor, different, and always first ever paid jobs. And if you're going to take this route, and if you're going to do that, and actually allocate your marketing budget to this organized community, then please, understand that you should never deprive anyone from their intellectual property. That's the other thing as well that is really important. Design an entire legal ecosystem around this community so you can perhaps have an exclusive release license. Term license are something that exists in this world. You can just buy a license to the use of the work, but don't deprive the artist from their actual intellectual property, because that's the big thing, right? So they can do whatever they want with it. And actually, great if they do. They kind of share the work everywhere. And that's kind of like, in a nutshell, what I wanted to say. And hopefully, it will be useful to the way you're going to engage with communities moving forward. Please remember to just, whatever you can do with the budget that you have can actually really, make a big difference with youth centers, with nightclubs, with, a lot of the communities that have been forgotten for quite a while. So here you go. Thank you. And this is, do I go?